This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in the studio in Colorado. We are doing some upgrades to the equipment, working on audio quality, and also getting ready to start shooting some videos. So you are going to want to stay close by. Check out the YouTube channel. You can check out mine at Phil McKinney over on YouTube, or you can also check out the Innovators Network. Videos will be posted in both locations when we are producing regular videos, when we are here in the studio. Still working on how do we do that within the mobile studio. Also wanted to give you a heads up as listeners. We will be back at the Consumer Electronics Show in January with the mobile studio. If you or a guest want to come out and set up a time to meet with us, if you've got a guest suggestion who will be at CES, that would be a good guest in the mobile studio, would love to hear about it. So just drop me an email over at phil@killerinnovations.com, and we'll look into potentially getting them on the schedule. If you're going to be at CES, just stop on by. We will be in the same place we were last year, which is out in front of the convention hall. And you can always drop us an email, and we'll send you a detailed map so you can find us and just come by and say hi. So we're out a little bit early on that. That's not till January, but wanted to put that on your calendar so that if you are going to be in Las Vegas, come check us out. Now, this week's show is actually triggered by a series of events that actually happened this week. I get these alerts whenever someone is posting a story that uses any of my content, whether it be someone sharing the podcast or using content from the blog. And we're getting into election season, it's interesting on who will try to use or who wants to use your content as part of some political campaign. Now, the alert that I just recently got wasn't from a campaign. It was actually about a local news agency using some of my content to talk about a platform that a specific candidate for governor is using. And this particular governor, it's one of the states here in the United States, I'll give you the hint, it's on the East Coast, that is building his entire campaign off of the whole concept of the innovation economy. Now, we talked about the innovation economy a whole lot here on the show over the years. We've been talking about it literally for the last, probably, the 14 years of the show. We're probably talking about the innovation economy for the last 7 or 8. And it seems that it's getting some traction in this political season around economic rebirth of urban areas, or reestablishing the fundamental economic growth engine for entire states in this case. And a number of states here in the U.S. have suffered significant economic downturns because of the fact that their economy was built on economic engines that just aren't growing. And in fact, some cases they have shrunk. And in the worst case, they no longer exist. Now, my wife and I, we grew up in the south side of Chicago. Both of our fathers, and in my case of my wife, both of her grandfathers were tied to the steel industry. And if you recall back in the 70s, what happened to the steel industry in the United States, it just basically tanked. And that was the end of it. Now, interestingly enough, it's starting to come back. There's a resurgence because of the demand for steel. And some of those steel mills that were closed are now reopened. In other parts, heavy manufacturing, such as Detroit and other locations. So the politicians are trying to identify what is this new economic growth engine, and it seems to be the one that they're gravitating to is this concept of the innovation economy. So this particular news agency, lifted a couple of paragraphs off of a blog post of mine from January of 2017 on the innovation economy. What is it? Why is it important? And that's fine. They actually gave credit to us, for the article, etc. But it actually caused me to take a step back and ask, maybe it's time for us to kind of relook at this innovation economy post that I did in 2017, share it with those of you on the podcast, because you may not have seen this particular post over on the blog over at philmckinney.com. So I've got the blog here. Yes, I need to have paper in front of me because that was 2017. So this post is over a year old. But as I read through it this evening, it actually brought back a number of just interesting points to remind us. So we're going to cover and discuss this over the next couple of segments of this show. Would love to hear your comments and feedback. Put those down in the comments section over on the show notes or wherever you happen to have gotten this podcast. We'll find it, and we can start a conversation and a dialogue. So there's a number of thought leaders that are out there talking about this, what they call the new economy. Gary Hamel, very famous professor, wrote a lot of books on strategic thinking. He refers to it as the new economy. I refer to it as the innovation economy. Some experts out there refer to it as the creative economy. So what is the innovation economy? And again, this is looking at market growth and how do you think about market growth. And what this fundamentally is talking to is this fact of the innovation economy is really based on the creative abilities of the citizens, the ability for people to constantly create, innovate, and develop new ideas, new products, new services. And it's really the value that's associated to the ideas and not so much the value attributed to the physical nature of that product, the manufacturing, the use of raw goods, converting ore into steel and steel into sheet metal and bending that sheet metal and making a device. The real value gets attributed to the value of the idea. And we're seeing this in spades in Silicon Valley with companies like Apple and the margin premium Apple gets because of the creativity and the innovation of their teams. It isn't just the cost of the component electronics that go into the phone. It's the value that people place above and beyond that bill of materials. That becomes the innovation value. And if you do really good innovation, customers will grant you that margin premium. That margin premium is the growth engine of the innovation economy. Now, there are a lot of cities out there who are trying to gravitate and grab a hold of this definition of the innovation economy. And even Detroit, which has gone through its downturns and massive vacancies in the housing market there. In fact, it's gotten to the point where the city is just bulldozing entire city blocks and creating new green spaces, but it's changing the landscape of Detroit. Detroit, however, has put together systems and programs and activities to try to encourage this innovation economy, encourage creatives to relocate into those cities and bring those creative powers to come up with entirely new kinds of products and services that will warrant an innovation premium that will in turn then drive the economic growth. Now, some of the more popular success stories that we know about, Silicon Valley being one, Boulder, which is where I'm living at now, Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas, the Boston 128 route. And it's quite funny as I travel across the country, particularly now, we're out in the mobile studio talking to people as we travel. Everybody has a silicon something. Urbana-Champaign, Illinois, University of Illinois, they call it the Silicon Prairie. You name it, everybody is trying to come up with a means to capitalize on this creative economy. But it's really not, I don't think there's a lot of value in just copying or duplicating what others are doing. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show, about what are the things that you can do to encourage this creative or innovation economy within your local area, because it is the growth engine that will drive economic growth, job creation, people feeling more confident about themselves, the ability for communities to be established and to flourish rather than seeing them shrink. But this is not a quick fix, and it's not even something that can be done in a single political cycle of an election, 4 years, 6 years. This is long-term commitments to make these things happen. So don't go anywhere. When we come back from this break, we're going to continue our conversation on the innovation economy. What is it? How does it impact? And what do you make it work? Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're continuing our conversation with regards to the innovation economy. Last segment, we talked about the definition of the innovation economy. In this segment, we're going to talk about how is the innovation economy changing the world. Now, it's hard not to find all the proof points on where the innovation economy has had huge impact. And that includes starting in the tech industry. The birthplace of Silicon Valley is recognized as being the garage on Addison Avenue in Palo Alto. Bill Hewlett and David Packard started HP in that garage. And so the tech industry naturally became this highly creative, rapid expansion, unbelievable rapid growth. But that was just the match that started the flames. The flame of the innovation economy then quickly transcended pretty much all in every industry. And we've seen disruptions across a variety of industries. Look, there's a meme going around on the internet around some of the crowd sharing technologies, such as the fact that the largest provider of overnight rooms, hotels, doesn't even own a hotel, and that's Airbnb. The largest fleet of vehicles to transport customers around is not a taxi company, and it's not a limousine company. They don't even own a vehicle, and that's Uber. So you look at just the role of innovation, this creative economy, this ability to look at problems in a unique and completely different way is totally transforming economies, businesses, industries, and it's also highly disruptive to the employees and to the companies that have long been established. If you look at, for instance, at what Uber has done in the destruction of jobs in the taxi industry, like in New York or London, where the taxi cab industry has decided not to roll over and play dead, but to actually confront Uber and take them to court and create their own applications to try to compete with them on the same grounds. So this innovation economic impact is just starting. We're just seeing it, whether it be like an Airbnb or an Uber or online stores having the impact on retail. I don't know about you, but every week or every couple of weeks we see, for instance, Sears listing a whole series of retail stores that are now going out of business. We're seeing more and more mom and pop retailers going out of business as more and more people shift their buying to Amazon. And then with Amazon Prime, you're getting your free shipping. So this effect of the innovation economy, this creative economy, is challenging itself to answer the question of what are the rules in which an industry operates, and what would I do to totally disrupt that industry? What would be if I was going to turn that completely on its head and completely change it? What would that look like? And that can be totally, radically disruptive to the employees in that base. And this becomes part of the challenge that politicians have to deal with. Now, we may think of it as hotel workers or taxi cab drivers, but it's impacting professionals also. One company has developed a chatbot and an artificial agent that will actually go and argue your case for you to get a parking ticket or a traffic ticket overturned. And it has an incredibly high success rate because it learns. It sends in the refute form, it poses its response, and then it learns which ones got rejected, which ones it got the ticket reduced, which ones it got the ticket totally eliminated. And so we're seeing, the replacement of lawyers that you would take to court to fight, in this case, traffic tickets. Doctors, diagnosticians, looking at x-rays. Now a lot of the x-ray reading is actually occurring offshore. So you take your x-ray at a hospital, you're playing weekend softball and you tweak your knee, you get the x-ray. That x-ray, odds are, is going to India. Someone in India is reading that x-ray, and then that information's coming back. What does that do for the doctors that are employed here in the U.S. or anywhere in the world for that matter? So the real question is with these changes, what does that impact, or what is its unintended consequence? Maybe, or its intended consequences, depending on how you look at it. But for instance, students today are seeing where this shift is happening, and you're starting to see this whole transformation of the educational model. So not only is it impacting the current industries and the current employers, it's having a huge wave, huge ripple effect back into education, and that includes the whole launching of STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and math. I like to throw the A in there for art, so it's STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And students are looking to say, how are you going to prepare me to compete in an economy where new industries are being disrupted continuously? I have to use technologies that have never been invented to solve problems that don't even exist today in the classroom. So the old days of memorizing formulas and memorizing problem solutions is not what prepares the people for this economy. It requires a completely rethinking of the educational model, more on critical thinking skills, finding and exercising that creativity, teamwork, collaboration, leadership, ideation, coming up with alternatives, and then doing hypothesis testing. We got this idea, this might work, how would we construct a test to see if it's going to work or not, and then off we go. So this shift, the changes that we're seeing in the innovation economy is impacting students, it's impacting industries, it's impacting existing employee base, but it's also impacting the aging population. As those jobs get replaced, are you going to get yourself reskilled to compete in the innovation economy? Or are you going to find an early retirement or some other means to basically step out? And this is an exact flashback to the 70s in the steel industry. In the case of my father and my father-in-law, they didn't reskill. They were at an age where they could see retirement within eyesight, and they ended up just struggling through and finding a niche that they could continue to work at until they could get to that retirement age. But that is pretty disruptive to the economy, to social services, to the whole program. And these are the things that politicians and us as society really need to think about. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back continuing this conversation on the innovation economy. Welcome back to Q Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. In this segment, we're going to continue our conversation on the innovation economy. Now, so far, we've taken a look at what is the innovation economy. We covered that in segment 1. Segment 2, we talked about how is the innovation economy changing our world. In this third segment, we're going to talk about why is the innovation economy important? Why should we care? And the way I think about this is you got to think about the innovation economy really is going to make huge and far-reaching waves that are going to impact pretty much all of us in our jobs, our schooling, our retirement, our free time. There's been a lot of fear, for instance, around AI innovations. What's that going to do? And does that totally replace it's going to change our entire lives from the standpoint of work. But I look at that on the flip side. If you look at the role of innovation, it's going to, not only is it improving the efficiency of business and allows business to make more money and to make more profit, but it also is going to take the burden off of the employees to do manual, repetitive kinds of things. It's actually going to potentially, maybe it even leads to a shorter work week. Maybe we go to a 4-day work week rather than a 5-day work week. It's going to make our day-to-day lives easier, more convenient. We're already seeing that. I don't know about you, but pretty much Amazon and Etsy and all those places know exactly where I live because I have enough of those boxes stacked up around the house to basically, my biggest challenge now around my house isn't what you normally would think. It's dealing with the cardboard from all of the purchases and all the things that arrive. Now, I choose, though, to still buy locally, and I only buy things online that I can't easily get locally. But we're seeing this shift for these economic changes. And if you look at some of the states that have already made this shift to the innovation economy, they're already seeing it, and that is they got ahead of it a decade and a half ago. And the one state that probably stands out the most, people would think California. That's a little bit atypical, and that's why I don't typically talk about Silicon Valley. What I'm talking about is states like Massachusetts. And if you look at what Massachusetts did, for instance, Massachusetts has the highest percentage of bachelor's degrees holding adults. Now, I'm not a buyer of college as the indication of creativity. But when you look at that statistic and you look at the next statistic of how many people are in creative jobs, meaning they're in product development, they're in industrial design, etc., like those things. Massachusetts has a huge number of jobs that are aimed specifically at the creative economy. Massachusetts also, as a result of its innovation economy, has this phenomenal growth rate. If you look at the growth rate of Massachusetts compared to typically the other states, and specifically in the innovation sectors that are in high growth, that are disrupting or being disrupted, is driving huge changes. And the real measurement is the economic output. What is ultimately the output that's coming from these creative jobs? And that is, in the case of Massachusetts, it's $210 billion. That's with a B, $210 billion. And it puts Massachusetts, from an innovation economy perspective, the leader in economic output from its innovation sectors. And therefore, other states and other countries, I get contacted by government officials all the time, looking for, what are the 3 things that will drive this kind of economic growth. Massachusetts is an example where it's not a quick fix. You can't just sit there, hope for something, click your heels, go to bed overnight, wake up the next morning, go, woohoo, we've had success. It doesn't work that way. Especially when you think about the impact of the innovation economy comes from having workers who are prepared, which means education that prepares the students to be able to work in the innovation economy. And it also deals with the time it takes to attract, putting together incentive programs, investment models. How do you attract those people that are the creatives to be part of your innovation economy, and that allows you to drive growth. Now, what I will tell you is the innovation economy is here to stay. It's not a blip thing that's just around for a couple years and it's going to go away and we're all going to roll back. The fact that the innovation economy has been established and growing over the last decade and a half proves it's got staying power. 2, we can all sit back and look at our lives today and point to the innovation economy impact on our own lives. The lowering cost of goods and services, the breadth and availability of new products and new kinds of services and new technologies, new creative ways to fund those, whether it's crowdsourcing approaches or the reduction of cost that it really takes for a startup to get going now. The cost for doing a startup these days is so ridiculously low that is not a barrier. What's the barrier is the ideas. How are you going to come up with the idea for that new product, that new service that you're going to build your economic well-being on, and how do you make that happen? And the reality is that any individual in any organization can be take advantage of this innovation economy, can be a leader in the innovation economy. We are all naturally creative. You've heard me say this how many times? We are all naturally creative. We are born creative. I've got 5 grandkids under the age of 6. I look at my youngest of my grandkids, and if you hand them a toilet paper roll, they will find literally tens, if not hundreds of ways to turn that into some kind of a toy. They use their creativity every day. My grandson, who lives not too far from us, I will sit there on the floor, and he and I will be playing Legos, and he will make up characters. We will have an entire conversation. My biggest fear is that something squashes that natural innovation, that natural creativity that these kids have. How do you nurture that, and how do you keep that going? But that takes lead time to put the programs in place, support that in order to have that innovation creative economy. We are all creative. Why do most people, in fact, 75% of adults do not think of themselves as highly creative? Why? We've been taught conformity, right? We're taught in school, think alike, act alike, dress alike, don't stand out. You might get, you'll get bullied, so don't stand out. Then we get through college, we graduate, and the number one skill CEOs are hiring for today is creativity and innovation. So we're taught to conform until our day one in the job, and then you got to be different. We have to unteach ourselves that conformity model and re-find in ourselves that childlike curiosity, the fresh eyes to look at problems in a new way and bring all of ourselves every day into the work world. Bring our ingenuity in to be successful and help the organizations that we want to be part of. The innovation economy is here to stay. The question I have for you is, do you have what it takes to keep up? Do you have the wherewithal to find that creative child that's inside of you, to find those fresh eyes, to look at the problems, look at the opportunities, and not just come up with the ideas, but translate those ideas into innovations? My definition of innovation is ideas made real. Ideas made real. It's not about just the ideas, it's about making them real. So hopefully you found this useful. We will have a link to this article. It's from a January 2017 post I wrote over at philmckinney.com. It seems to be one that's getting a little bit of traction now as we go into the political season. We've had a handful of people who quoted bits and pieces of it that are all looking to use innovation economy as a platform to get elected. I'm a little skeptical. People like to throw around the word innovation. Are they serious? Time will tell. But take a look at it, read it. Love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Put your comments over at killerinnovations.com. Don't go anywhere. We have the fourth segment, and we'll share with you 5 minutes to new ideas, a question that will help you spark and find that next great idea. This segment of the show I call 5 minutes to new ideas. Designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Get your notebook out and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 minutes to new ideas. What is your organization's philosophy about design and development? Do you keep everything in-house, or do you outsource as needed? There are two schools of thoughts on this. By keeping the design process in-house, a company can build a sense of continuity and cohesion that links the entire family of products together in some satisfying way. Or you can go as outsource as needed, hiring talent for specific products and moving on once that product is complete. Now, neither is right or wrong. The more important point is to have a rationale for whichever strategy you choose and to extract the most value from it. Look at a company like Herman Miller. Their Aeron chair was an iconic design for the technological age, back when it was first launched, but it wasn't designed internally. Instead, Herman Miller outsourced the design to leading designers that have their own firms. The famous husband and wife team of Charles and Ray Eames designed the classic 1950 Eames chair the same way. The point is that Herman Miller knows what their strengths are, manufacturing and distributing the final product. They also have a huge amount of practical expertise. For instance, they have experts in ergonomics, the less obvious details that are critical to the overall comfort and practicality of a chair. They share this very specialized knowledge with the designers, and then they throw the company's expertise into selling the final piece of furniture. Herman Miller has a very different idea of where design, research, and development should take place. Herman Miller has adopted the philosophy that it's more important to ensure that the best and brightest are working on their products, and that this is the highest priority than making sure the work is done in-house. While I was CTO at HP, the innovation team developed a product called Dream Screen, an all-in-one PC with a unique set of features for the India market. So why would you design that product in the United States? If you're going to design a product for a specific market, then you need to throw out the rules of how it's being done in the past and do the R&D closer to the customer. So we sent a team to India, we interviewed 2,600 customers, and we drove the R&D from India, closest to the customer. Sometimes you have to put your resources in the right place to get the right results. You need to be aware of the fact that your team will have gaps in their life experiences, their beliefs, their focus. This may not matter in 99% of the products you assign them, but there will be times where these gaps are a problem. Consider the possibility that you need to look outside your walls to find the right brains for the specific task. You aren't going to have 100% of the resources you need inside your organization. It's just too costly to keep these highly specialized people on the bench until you need them. If you are an employee in one of these specialized departments, you need to be aware of how this shift is going to change your value to your organization. If you believe there's coming transition to the creative economy, then your future worth and career is dependent on your ability to come up with ideas for a number of companies rather than just one. As soon as you go dry, you are out of luck. Another element of this killer question is that you need to consider is the concept of open innovation, which has been a hot topic for the last few years. Open innovation is the approach where organizations go outside to secure a funnel of ideas. One example is companies who partner with state universities to leverage government-funded research, or companies who sponsors promising high school students in the hope that they will join their workforce after graduation. The U.S. government is using programs like Topcoder to create open-source idea channels. Companies like Procter & Gamble post tough engineering problems on dedicated websites and offer prizes for the first person to come up with a solution. So how does this affect you and your business? No matter what size your organization is, you have to recognize the importance of embracing the open innovation concept as you source your ideas. One of the challenges with innovation today is that many people believe that high-impact innovation comes from large companies. However, the U.S. Small Business Administration reports that while small firms are granted only 8% of all patents, they receive 24% of all patents issued in the top 100 emerging technologies. That's right, 8% of all patents, but they're 24% in the top 100 technologies. So the source for ideas in the new and emerging areas is strongly influenced by startups. Patents issued to small businesses are not broad, generic patents, but are focused on very specific innovations and have the biggest scope and the highest return. It's why you see so many examples of large companies acquiring these young, innovative startups that are focused on a very specific area that is of interest to them. This means that large companies are looking for sources of innovation outside of the four walls, and they realize that they need to be part of what others are doing, either by partnering with innovative startups, acquiring them, or investing in them. Procter & Gamble has stated target that 50% of their innovations need to come from outside the company, which forces their people to seek out others who are doing interesting stuff, not just rely on what's happening in the building. Innovation used to be all about confidentiality, funding your own research and development. The future is different. This shift from the knowledge economy to the creative economy requires that organizations think differently about their funnel of innovations. The fundamental value in the new economy is ideas, and ideas can come from anywhere. You don't need machinery or a lot of capital to have ideas. The creative economy relies on the individual's ability to come up with ideas that are interesting and compelling. The sourcing of those ideas can come from anywhere, and you need to recognize that they are really, really smart people all over the world. So in order to stay in the game, you have to be on the constant lookout for where that next great idea is going to come from. Because even if you aren't looking for it, I can guarantee that your competitors are. So ask yourself, where do we perform product research and development, and where else could this be done? Challenge the traditional rules of R&D by asking yourself, are you doing your R&D 100% internally or externally, and do you really understand why you do it this way? How confident are you that you have the best possible R&D teams working on your projects? And what would be the result if you radically changed your approach to R&D? By asking the uncomfortable questions on something as important as your research and development, you open yourself to ideas coming from areas you never before considered. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. If I could ask for a favor, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. I'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.